Welcome to the Lifetime Assembly channel. My name is John, and today I'm going to help you assemble your double adventure tower. Before we get started, make sure the model number of your adventure tower is listed in the description below. This video will follow the steps outlined in the assembly manual that comes with the adventure tower. So if you've already begun and need help on a specific step, check the description below for a timestamp associated with each step. Your adventure tower comes in several boxes and pieces, but should have come in one big pallet. So refer to your assembly manual to confirm that you've got all the parts that you need. There are steps within this assembly that require more than one person, so be sure to have at least one other adult available to help. Before we get into the assembly process, let's take a look at the tools you'll need to complete the job. You'll need a 1/2 inch wrench, 2 7/16 wrenches, 2 3/16 Allen keys, which are included, a drill. You may just use an impact driver. If you decide to use one as well, be sure not to over torque or over tighten the hardware, a ladder, a 3/8 drill bit, safety glasses, a tape measure, a Phillips head bit, a Phillips head screwdriver, a hammer, and a rubber mallet. To make this easier, we're going to use a 1/2 inch socket, a 7mm socket, a 7/16 socket, a 3/16 hex head socket, and a socket adapter. When building your adventure tower, it's important that you choose a flat and level area free from obstructions and at least 7 feet away from buildings, trees, fences, or any other object. Also, to reduce the risk of injury, it's important that you prepare a shock-absorbing surface to build your adventure tower on, such as recycled rubber mulch or wood chips. This video will focus on the assembly of the adventure tower and not the shock-absorbing surface, so it's crucial that you refer to the assembly manual to review the safety instructions for this build. This video is meant to be used as a companion to the assembly manual and not a direct replacement, so for the best results, make sure to have the assembly manual on hand during the build. Alright, let's get started. Take 2 angled deck supports and make sure that these dimpled holes are facing up, and then take a short deck support tube and make sure that this hole is closer to the top, and then secure with the hardware. Repeat the previous step with 2 angled deck supports and a short deck support tube. Take the deck support assemblies from the previous step and attach them to the long deck support tube, making sure that the holes that are closer to the outside are closer to the top. There are 3 poles you need to look out for when building your towers. For this tower, you need to watch out for pole GCN. It goes right here. Add the foot cap to the pole labeled GCN to the end that's not tapered. When adding the pole labeled GCN to the deck assembly, make sure you're adding it to one of the short deck support tubes, lining up these 2 holes with the 2 holes at the end of the tube. Secure the tube to the pole, making sure that the shoulder bolt goes through the top hole and the threaded bolt goes through the bottom hole. Make sure the dimpled holes on the angled deck supports are still facing up. Now secure the angled deck supports to the pole with the hardware. Attach the wall support braces to this hole, making sure to finger tighten this hardware for now. Swing the brace that's on the bottom up to the angled deck support and then secure with the hardware. Then do the brace on the top. Once they look like this, go ahead and tighten all the hardware. Take the other 3 poles labeled GBR and add the foot caps to the end that doesn't have a taper. Add all 3 poles labeled GBR to the deck support assembly using the same method as the previous pole while also adding the braces. Place the tower extensions labeled EMM onto the poles labeled GBR, making sure that the hole that is further away from the end goes onto the pole. For the pole labeled GCN, attach the tower extension labeled GMD to the top. There's no hardware for this step. Add a handrail to the pole labeled GCN, making sure it's oriented towards the pole on the left. Before securing the handrail to the neighboring pole, add another handrail as well. Repeat the previous step, adding another handrail. Finish securing the final handrail, making sure there's an opening to the right of the pole labeled GCN. Insert the cap into the tower extensions, making sure the holes line up. With the help of another person, lift the assembly up onto its feet. Make sure this tower is in a position that leaves enough room for the second tower, which will be attached to the open side of this tower. On each deck panel, there will be 11 divots that you need to drill out with a 3/8 drill bit. Make sure you're drilling from the top down. Place the 2 deck panels onto the assembly, making sure that the seam goes over the 2 short deck support tubes. You may need to lift the panels up into a V so you can interlock the tabs at the center. Secure the deck to the frame by adding the hardware through the holes in the middle. To the right of the opening, add a handrail support labeled DXI into the cutout on the deck panel. Secure the top of the handrail support to the handrail with the hardware. Before you secure the bottom of the handrail support, make sure you add the bracket to this location oriented like this. Add another handrail support labeled DXI across from the gap, making sure to add the hardware and the bracket. Just to the left of the pole labeled GCN, add a handrail support labeled DXO. Finish securing the deck to the frame through the open holes with the self-tapping screws. The screws are designed to go through the metal underneath. On the pole just to the right of the opening, add the handles labeled DXF. These handles could also be marked with the letter A. Repeat the previous step with the handles DXF across from the pole from the previous step. On each handrail support, add a handle labeled DYA, making sure it's facing the handle DXF on the poles. On each pole labeled GBR, add the hardware to this hole. Just to the left of the opening, add the metal barrier to the pole and the handrail support on the inside. On the pole opposite the pole labeled GCN, add the brackets oriented like this. When adding the brackets to the top, make sure that the hardware goes through the top hole on the bracket. And when adding the brackets to the bottom, make sure the hardware goes through the bottom hole on the bracket. On the edge of the plastic barriers, drill out each indentation with a 3/8 drill bit. You'll notice an oblong impression and a circle impression. I find things line up best when I place my drill bit on the inside edge of the circle impression. Make sure to keep your drill bit within the oblong impression. Attach the plastic barriers to the outside edge of the handrail supports and the inside of the brackets that we added earlier. Take 2 roof panels, align them on the edges, and secure the hardware. Repeat for another set of roof panels. Connect the two halves of the roof together by lining up the holes and securing with the hardware. Connect 4 roof supports in a raised X position and then finger tighten the hardware for now. Flip the roof panel over and then add your roof supports, making sure the holes line up. Secure the roof supports to the roof with the hardware. To make this easier, I'm going to flip the roof over so I can reach the top holes better. Now go ahead and tighten the hardware in the middle. Line up the arrows on the roof cap with the arrows on the roof panels and secure with the hardware. You want this to be as centered as possible so you don't end up having too much on one side or the other. With the help of another person, lift the roof onto the tower, making sure that the roof supports line up with the tower extensions. Attach the roof supports to the tower extensions across from the opening. Repeat the previous step for the other side of the tower, making sure to add your top rail to the outside of the tower extensions. Insert a plug into the bridge support pole, making sure the holes line up. Make sure you use bridge support pole labeled GCP for this step. Place the top of the bridge support pole inside the top rail and then into the cutout on the deck. Secure the top rail and make sure to add your spacer. Now secure the bottom, making sure to add the bracket. Add a handhold labeled DYA to the right side of the tower support pole we just added. Take two Rockwall panels that look like this and drill out the 4 divots on the back side of the Rockwall panels. Attach the handholds to the rock walls, making sure that the tabs on the back of the handholds line up with the notches on the rock wall. The small washer goes on the inside of the handhold with the bolt, and the large washer goes on the back side with the nut. Connect a window panel to the left side of a Rockwall panel, making sure that the window panel goes behind the Rockwall panel and that you don't add any hardware to the top hole. Before tightening the hardware, make sure that the top of the panels are flush. Connect the panels to the bracket opposite the bridge support pole. Attach a door panel to the left side of the window panel, making sure that the door panel goes behind the window panel and that you don't add any hardware to the top hole. This will attach to the bracket just to the left of the pole GCN. Where the wall panels meet, connect them to the pole, making sure that the wall panel on the left always goes underneath the wall panel on the right. Connect a window panel to the left side of a door panel, making sure that the window panel goes behind the door panel and that you don't add hardware to the top hole. Connect this panel to the bracket just below the bridge support pole. Attach the 2 neighboring wall panels to the pole using the same method as before. Attach a rock wall panel to the left side of a window panel, making sure the rock wall panel goes underneath the window panel and that you don't add any hardware to the top hole. Attach this panel to the final location and then secure it to the poles on both sides. Take your climber legs, labeled EAH and EAG, place the caps in the bottom and secure with the hardware. Add the ladder rungs to one of the legs, making sure to leave the hardware loose to make putting the other ladder leg on easier. Place the ladder rungs onto the other ladder leg and then secure the hardware from that step and the previous step. The ladder will go over the door just to the right of the bridge support pole, and there are 2 divots underneath that you'll need to drill out. There are 4 divots, and the 2 that you need to drill out with a 3/8 drill bit are the 2 that are furthest apart. Slide the ladder in between the deck and the wall panel, making sure to line up the holes, and then add the hardware with the washer on top. The slide goes over the other door panel, and there are 3 divots underneath that you need to drill out with a 3/8 drill bit. The 3 divots you need to drill out are the 3 closest to the wall panel. The slide comes in 2 pieces, and at some point we will connect them together. With a 3/8 drill bit, drill out the 4 holes at the bottom of the top part of the slide and the top part of the bottom part of the slide. Place the lower part of the slide onto the upper part of the slide like this. Now secure the 2 halves together with the hardware. At the top of the slide, locate these 3 divots and drill them out with a 3/8 drill bit. Place the slide over the 3 holes you drilled out on the deck and then secure with the hardware. Now that we're starting on the second tower, a lot of the steps will be the same or similar. From step 6.1 to 6.3, they are exactly the same as step 1.1 to 1.3. So if you need detailed instructions, go back to that part of the video. For the second tower, there are two poles you need to watch out for and make sure they're in the correct positions. Pole GCO goes right here, and pole GEA goes directly across on the opposite side. Take the leg labeled GCO and add the foot cap into the end that's not tapered. Connect this pole to the deck assembly, making sure it's connected to one of the short deck support tubes and that the dimples on the angled deck supports are facing up. Securing these poles is the same process that you saw in section 1. Add the foot caps to the remaining poles. Attach the other poles to the deck assembly using the same method, except make sure that pole GEA is directly across from pole GCO. Take the tower extension labeled EMM and slide it onto the poles labeled GBR. Make sure that the end that you're sliding onto the poles has the hole that's further away from the edge. Then secure with the hardware. Take the tower extension labeled GEB and slide it onto the pole labeled GCO. Then take the tower extension pole labeled GEC and slide it onto the pole GEA. Add your handrails to the tower using the same method as the other tower. Just make sure that your opening is on the left side of the pole GCO. Place the caps onto the tower extensions and make sure that the holes line up. With the help of another person, lift the tower up onto its feet. Using a 3/8 drill bit, drill all of the indents on the deck panels, drilling from the top down. With the help of another person, lift the deck panels onto the frame, making sure that the seam goes along the short deck support tubes. Then secure through the two center holes. Just to the left of the opening, place the handrail support on the outside of the handrail and inside the cutout on the deck. Secure the top of the handrail support to the handrail with the hardware. Before securing the bottom, make sure to add your bracket, but also another bracket labeled DZT oriented like this. Repeat the previous step opposite the gap, except this time your second bracket will be labeled DZU. Repeat the previous step, except this time you only need one bracket. Finish securing the deck to the frame with the self-tapping screws. The screws are designed to go through the metal underneath. Connect the long brace to this hole on the pole labeled GBR just left of the gap, making sure that the flat side of the long brace goes against the pole. Only finger tighten the hardware for now. Add the other end of the long pull brace to this bracket with the hardware. Once it's attached, go ahead and secure all the hardware. Repeat the previous step opposite the gap. On both poles labeled GBR, attach the handles labeled DXF or stamped with the letter A to both sides. On each handrail support, add a handle labeled DYA or stamped with the letter B on the same side as the handle labeled DXF. Add 2 metal barriers to the pole labeled GEA. Then connect the other end to the neighboring handrail supports. Add the last metal barrier to the pole labeled GCO and the neighboring handrail support. The roof assembly is exactly the same as the other roof, so for detailed instructions, refer to section 3 in this video. With the help of another person, lift the roof up onto the tower and secure it to the poles using the same method as before. Before securing the roof over the opening, add the top pole on the outside of the poles. Take your bridge support pole labeled GCT and insert the plug into the top, making sure the holes line up. Add the bridge support pole to the tower using the same method as the other bridge support pole. Attach the final handle labeled DYA or stamped with the letter B to the bridge support pole, making sure it's on the same side as the handle DXF. Take the two rock wall panels and drill out the divots on the back side. Add the handholds using the same method as the first tower. Add a window wall panel to the left side of the rock wall panel, making sure not to add the hardware in the top hole. Attach this panel to the bracket just to the left of the opening, making sure that the long brace goes behind the rock wall panel. Attach a door panel to the left side of the window panel using the same method as before. Add these panels to the bracket just below the opening, and then secure the overlapping panels to the pole. Secure the window panel to the left side of the door panel using the same method as before. Secure these panels to the bracket just to the right of the opening. Connect the rock wall panel to the left side of a window panel using the same method. Connect these panels to the bracket directly across from the opening and then secure the edges to the poles. Assembling the ladder is exactly the same as the ladder on the other tower, so if you need detailed instructions on how to do that, refer to section 5 in the video. Above the door, under the opening, you need to drill out the 2 outermost divots under the deck. Attach the ladder the same way you attach the ladder on the other tower. Over the other door, there are 3 divots you need to drill out that are all closer to the rock wall panel. Assembling the slide and attaching it to the tower is the exact same process as the other tower, so for more detailed instructions, refer to section 5 in this video. Add the clicker to the steering wheel. Then add the steering wheel and the clicker to the tower extension pole labeled GEC and secure with the hardware. Once the hardware is tight, push the cap onto the steering wheel until it's flush. Secure the tower extension to the pole through these 2 holes. Add the plugs into the bridge side rails, making sure the holes line up. Add the bridge support tubes to one of the side rails, making sure to add them on top of the rail and only in the circular holes. The washer goes on the bottom side with a nut, and only finger tighten this hardware for now. Connect the other end of the bridge support tubes to the other side rail. Orient your tower like this so that the openings next to the ladders are facing each other, because this is where your bridge will go, and make sure that the towers are 5 feet apart. With the help of another person, lift the bridge into these openings so that each side rests on the towers. These holes here are where the bridge will connect to the tower. If they don't line up, take the time now to adjust the tower so that the holes will line up. Secure each side of the bridge to the poles through these holes. Before attaching the top of the bridge rails, you need to make sure that the rungs are straight. If they're not, make sure that you twist or push the tower so that they are. Attach the top of the bridge rails to these poles. Now that the bridge is in place and secure, go ahead and tighten all the hardware. Take the bridge panel and drill out the divots on the edges with a 3/8 drill bit. Now lay the panel onto the rungs. Line up the holes in the panel with the oblong holes in the rail and secure with the hardware. Now you need to anchor down your playset. Make sure it's in its final location, and then locate this pole that's directly opposite the slide. Remove the nut that holds the foot cap in place. Once the nut's removed, add the washer and then the looped end of the cable, and then reinstall the hardware. Place the forked end of the anchoring rod into the anchor. Place it close to the foot, and then drive it at least 12 inches into the ground. Since we're inside, we're not going to be able to do that, but it's important that you do. Once you have it down 12 inches, make sure to pull out any slack remaining in the line, and then tighten the hardware on the U-bolt, and after you've done that, tighten the hardware on the foot cap. Once the hardware is tight, go ahead and thread on 2 more nuts to each bolt. Repeat these steps for the pole on the opposite side, and then repeat for the other tower. Thank you for watching this video on how to assemble your lifetime double adventure tower. If you found this video helpful, give us a thumbs up. For more content like this, subscribe to our channel. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to our customer service team and check out our other awesome products at lifetime.com.